Every year, my town has a Halloween fair that opens up during the last week of October. It's basically just a bunch of Halloween-themed attractions like haunted houses and scary corn mazes. My friends and I like to go there before we started trick-or-treating, just to get us into the Halloween mood. So just like every other year, we met up there around 5. It was pretty busy, which is expected on Halloween, but basically every attraction had a really long line that was not worth waiting in. We looked around for a bit, then realized that the only thing with a short line was the corn maze. Something always made me feel weird about being in a corn maze. I think it was the fact that you kind of always feel lost and lose a sense of direction after a while. Anyways, we waited in line for a few minutes, then entered the maze. They had a bunch of creepy scarecrows and other props set up, which definitely made it more enjoyable than a regular corn maze. But after about 10 minutes, it got a little boring, and it felt as though we were just walking in circles. At one point, we crossed paths with some older guy in a scarecrow costume, who just kind of walked past us without saying anything. And then a few minutes later, we crossed paths again. I thought it was part of the attraction at first, but I also thought it was weird that he didn't actually try to scare us. Then again, it would also be weird for a grown man to be walking around alone in a corn maze, too. Another 10 minutes went by before we finally found our way out. We checked one more time to see how long the other lines were, but ended up just leaving as we didn't want to miss out on trick-or-treating for standing in a line all night. The fair was in the center of my neighborhood, so it made it easy to just cross a couple of streets and then start going house to house for candy. We'd gone to probably 20 houses and had made our way down a whole street before one of my friends in the group stopped us as we were walking down the sidewalk. Isn't that the guy from the corn maze? We looked up and towards where he was looking. Sure enough, the man in the scarecrow costume was standing on the other side of the street from us. He wasn't looking at us though. He was staring at the house that he was standing next to. We all thought it was pretty weird, and knew now that the guy was definitely not working for the fair. We skipped the next few houses to get some distance from the man, just in case. Then we continued our trick-or-treating as usual. Only a couple minutes later, we all saw the creepy scarecrow guy on the same side of the road as us, and walking towards us this time. He was only a few houses down from us, and by now we definitely knew that there was something wrong with this guy. We walked quickly down to the next intersection and turned left. From there, we ran as fast as we could to get to the next turn and made a right, hoping that he wouldn't have been able to see where we went. By now, we were all a little freaked out and really had no idea what this guy was trying to do, but it was definitely creepy. One of my friend's houses was just up ahead though, so we figured we could stay there for half an hour to make sure that he was gone, and then we could head back out. I'd say we were inside for 10 minutes before we heard a soft rustling sound coming from outside one of the windows in the room that we were in. We all looked at each other, terrified of what we'd see if we moved the curtain from the window. But then I got up slowly and made my way over, and I peeked behind the curtain. The man was standing just a few feet from the house, staring at the window with something in his hand. It looked like a hammer or a crowbar, but I backed away too quickly to fully comprehend what I saw. My friends knew exactly what the situation was, and we called 911 to report the guy for following us. Then my friend called his parents to let them know what was going on. It took a whole 5 minutes for the police to arrive, and during that time we didn't hear or see anything else. But as soon as the sirens were nearby, we all heard footsteps running away from the backyard. When the cops came up to the door, we explained in more detail what was going on, and they actually told us that there were multiple other reports of the guy in a scarecrow costume harassing people at the fair. We decided to just hang out at the house for the rest of the night, which really sucked because it kind of ruined our Halloween. But we all still had the feeling that that guy was somewhere not far, watching and waiting for us. Halloween has always been one of my favorite holidays ever since I was a kid. I just enjoy the whole idea of spooky season and watching horror movies and everything. Anyways, this happened last year when I was 22 and lived in a small one-story home with my roommate Alex. It was Halloween night, around 9 p.m., and all the kids had pretty much finished trick-or-treating, so I put the candy away and turned off all the lights. Then we both sat down to watch some horror movies. We finished the whole movie, and I had Alex find us another one to watch while I went into the kitchen to grab some snacks. On my way into the kitchen, I thought I saw something move by the sliding glass door that led into the backyard. It startled me for a second, and I walked closer to the door, but I didn't see anything else. So I checked to make sure it was locked, and then I went to grab a bag of popcorn and made my way back to the couch. Just as Alex started the movie, we both heard a thud from the backyard. We looked at each other, then both went to the kitchen and over to the back door. I turned on the back porch light, and then slid the door open and peeked my head out. Our yard was small, and it had a fence around it, so it would have been pretty easy to see if someone was there, but I didn't see anything. We both just assumed it must have been a neighbor, and I closed the door and we continued the movie. At some point midway through, Alex got up to grab some water, and a few seconds later I heard him whisper to me from the other room. "Dude, someone's here." I could hear the genuine fear in his voice, and I immediately got a little scared too. I made my way over to him and asked what he saw, and he told me that as soon as he came into the kitchen, he saw a man run past the sliding door from outside. Although still creeped out, I told him it had to be just some stupid Halloween prank. I think part of me was just saying that to try and make myself feel better too, but it didn't work for very long. Only moments later, the front doorbell rang. I led the way, and Alex followed behind me as I walked over to the door and looked out the peephole. I saw a man in a white mask and dark clothing standing on the porch. I could see he was holding a pillowcase too, and it looked pretty full, as if he had a bunch of candy in it. He was just staring at the door, not even moving or looking around. I honestly didn't know what to do, so I let Alex look, and then we both decided to just ignore him and see if he leaves. We waited for a few minutes on the couch, pretty much just sitting in silence, trying to listen for anything. Then I got up and looked again, and the man was gone, but he left his pillowcase on the porch, still full. "Let's just call the cops. Something doesn't feel right about this." I agreed with him, and we went over to get my phone from the couch, but as I walked through the hallway, I saw the man standing with his mask against the sliding door in our backyard. I yelled for Alex, and we both ran to my bedroom and locked ourselves in. Alex pulled his phone out and called 911, while I moved a dresser in front of the door just in case. We were both freaking out, and I didn't want to take any risks. Only moments later, the guy started banging on our window, and I could hear him trying to open it from the outside. We had only lived there for a few months, and I honestly had no idea if the windows were even locked or not, as neither of us have ever touched them. Alex pulled the curtain back, and the man ran away. Luckily, the windows were locked. We waited in my room for almost 15 minutes before the police showed up. The man had already run off, I guess, but when we let the cops in, we noticed the pillowcase was still on the porch. One of the officers slowly opened it and checked inside. Then he grabbed it and poured it out. It was just a bunch of leaves and small sticks. The officer guessed that it was probably just some trick to try and get us to open the door so he could force his way in. With nothing really to go off of though, they ended up leaving after taking a quick look around and not seeing anything. We were still shaken by the incident, but nothing else happened the rest of the night or any day afterwards. We still ended up moving out a few months later though, as we didn't feel very safe in the house after that incident.